What's going on, everyone? Juicebags here, and welcome back to some Dungeon Defenders Awakened. So the testing build for the next update is out on PC. I will put a link down in the description below if you're a PC player of DDA and you want to check out the testing build or the PTR. Everyone has access to it that owns the game on Steam, so I'll put a link to that down in the description below. Now, with this update, the newest hero, of course, is the Summoner. This one, folks have been looking forward to for a long time, and today we're going to kind of go through the goods and the bads about the Summoner. Now, first off, starting off with active play. I'll just come right out and say it. Literally every single thing about the active play of the Summoner is top-notch. So if you want to play your Summoner actively, oh my god, you're going to wreck some faces. This is double bombers. You can go bomber and cat. You can go two monkey kings. You can go monkey king and cat. And you will just absolutely devastate all of the enemies with your pet damage with that pet boost. You see, it's a huge speed buff. It's just good. It's really, really good. Now, on that note, of course, there is two pets. Now, you also, the question is going to be, do you use two buff pets? And I think there's really a strong set of choices for active play on the Summoner. However, lots of people were questioning the pet damage. The pet damage is all we would hope it would be. It's beast mode. It can compete situationally with a proper group combination. It can actually beat out Squire Spinning Steel DPS or EV Proton Charge DPS. So it's just really, really good. No doubt about it there. Now the Flash Heal. The Flash Heal is quite good as well. Now there's some runes that go with the Flash Heal. More importantly, it's a tower boost. Defenses within Flash Heal gain 50% attack rate and 150% power for 5 seconds. It's an insanely good tower boost. And in my opinion, I think the Summoner, as far as like a boost build, where you're building like one stack of defenses and you have a booster on it, a Tower Boost Monk or an Overcharge Apprentice, I think the Summoner is going to be right in there with those. It's going to be just as good as an Overcharge Apprentice, with having the two Guardian Pets that you could bring along, and it's going to be better than a Tower Boost Monk. So the Flash buff is good stuff. Now, the range on it, a lot of folks were a little concerned about the range. The range is actually much greater than that animation. So that animation is very, very deceiving. The range is much larger than that animation there. So if you are tinkering around on the PTR and you see that animation on the Flash Heal, it is way bigger than that, y'all. So don't sweat it. It's got a really fair amount of range to it. But actively, I've got literally not one single negative thing to say about the Summoner. The Summoner is going to be such a go-to hero for active play. You can do everything in the game with it, and then, like in this situation, I'm using two little bombers. It seriously shreds maps just by running around on it and letting these little bombers go ham. It does an absolutely amazing job. Now, of course, the first thing that comes to mind looking at it is it OP? Well, it's by default, without group composition or setups for it, it's going to be not as much damage as a Spinning Steel Squire. So as far as damage output, it is incredibly good. Is it OP? Well, it's not at the very top of the list. That's for sure. Now, as I mentioned, with a group build and setup, you can get really ridiculous numbers using like Cat Monkey King or Double Monkey King. So definitely one that is going to have some viable playstyle options without a doubt. Now let's move on to the defenses. First off, defense number one, we've got the Archer. Now, of course, in DD1, the minion units were basically free placement, so we ended up using our Archers as walls. We've got a rune with kind of that in mind. Let's see, or I don't have it equipped here. The rune is called Life Leech. Arrows heal the minion for 7% of the max HP, but decreases max HP by 40%. Now, I gotta say, it's really good. It's really good. On Alk Labs, I had archers tanking out multiple ogres on Lycan King bonus difficulty at the same time. On live stream, it's absolutely incredible. However, the problem is what made it so useful in DD1 is the MU and the DU. So situationally, you know, of course, you're going to want to have, say, 2 or 3 archers there. Well, then additionally, you're going to want to give them a mage to help them heal as well. And then you would want to give them a buff beam as well. So you've got a lot of DU that you would be sinking into a wall build when, to be honest, that amount of DU going into walls is just going to be outclassed by many other things in the game. So although it is effective, it is not wonderful. Now, one of the things, or one of the challenges with testing these minions on the PTR is all of the minions appear to be on fodder targeting, and there's targeting issues with them. So you can look at their damage output. However, you can't look at really their effectiveness as they've just got the wrong targeting. Now, as far as raw damage goes, the archers are going to be just not as good as a magic missile. They're both T2 DU. You see this one unbuffed is doing 760,000 DPS. With a slightly better gear, but relatively comparable, this apprentice with a magic missile is going to be pumping out 1.3. So big difference there in effectiveness between the two. A magic missile is just more damage than the archer is going to put out. Quite a bit more, in fact, at the same DU cost. Now, with that in mind, the magic missile also has a rune, a bounce rune, which in my opinion needs a little love, but it is a rune that's going to add more damaging effectiveness to the magic missile. The archer does not have that. So shy of using archer walls, it feels like to me the archer could use a little bit of love. Now, as I mentioned, in a situation where you have it set up where like you've got archer walls with the heal rune on a fusion buff beam with a mage, and then if you really want to go over the top, throw a strength drain aura and a siren near it as well, you're going to have a serious tanky wall, but you're going to have to spend a massive amount of DU to get that wall. Now, moving on to the next, the spider. The spider's got a whole lot of issues with it right now. The projectile is a little wonky. It's got targeting issues. You see that 2 damage poison, which is a rune for it. The rune is not putting out. It's broken, not working. However, with all that in mind, the spider is without a doubt, in my opinion, the best addition. It's going to be a meta addition to every single map. Without question, the spider is just juicy AF. Now, the spider is going to give you a pretty decent damage output in an AoE fashion, but additionally, it's going to add a slow, and then if you look at the tooltip, doubling any damage they receive. So not only is it doing acceptable damage, it's adding in a slow, and it's making all your other defenses do double damage to that enemy while they're spidered. That's pretty darn good, y'all. And the spiders seem effective enough where you can even just throw them around maps without protecting them with a reflect beam or anything. Now, obviously, if you put them right in a direct path, they're going to get raffle stomped. However, dropping a few spiders around various maps is going to be quite meta. There's just no doubt. Now, the spiders, I think, would probably be best for fodder targeting, maybe. I guess that's debatable. Like in a situation where you've got a Jhin, of course you wouldn't want your spiders all thrown out at a Jhin. However, I could completely see using spider walls as a meta defense. And the difference here is even though you're spending way more DU than you would with archer walls, the level of effectiveness is just really solid. Can't say enough positive things about the spiders, even with all of the broken things. Now remember, we're only a few days into public testing, so this is like a first rendition. Without a doubt, these are not the exact minions that will be delivered to us when this update goes live, and there will definitely be updates throughout the PTR. tweaking some of the stuff and things. But Spider gets the S tier class or classification from me personally, even with all of its wonkiness. If you look at that rune, that Spider rune, Spider's Poison, webbed enemies receive poison damage over time that deals 100% tower damage. They're just not, the poison damage is just not going off. You see that 2 damage. Yeah, the poison is just not getting it. However, I think that will be a very effective addition and a very effective rune to use in combination with the Spiders once it gets fixed. So Spiders for the win, no doubt at all. Now moving on to the Siren. The Siren's got a pretty amazing amount of cool factor. She looks good. She shoots fast. There's one big problem with the Siren. It's just not worth the DU. It's not worth 4 DU for the damage output it gives you. It's just not a ton of damage. It needs to be tweaked. Now, of course, one of the other benefits is she's going to cast a protective shield around defenses. So what this is referring to is a 5% armor buff. So if we say put a flame burst tower over here, and then we look at it, the flame burst tower is got no armor at all in its current form. Now, of course, if it had a buff beam on it, it would have some additional armor. If we throw a flame burst tower over here next to the Siren, you see now it's got 15% armor. So it does get a 15% armor buff from the Siren itself. It does stack up with a buff beam, but if you have a buff beam that's fully maxed, it's only going to give you an additional 5% armor past the buff beam's max. So it does give you 5% more. However, it just feels like it could potentially not be worth the DU. Now, once again, this is in the initial stages of it. It's just coming out. No doubt will get tweaked. There was actually a projectile for it that was quickly hot fixed. I'm assuming it was breaking people's games. That was glorious. Absolutely glorious. So I would like to see the summoner or the Siren get a little bit of a damage buff. Maybe even a little bit more of a range boost on that armor value that you get from it. And then I'm trying to place it somewhere you can see it a little bit better. There is a line, so it's very easy to see that area of effect. You see the green circle here. You can see it right there on the edge and kind of going around like this. That green circle is the area effect of that additional armor. So good stuff there as far as the armor itself, but with the damage output of it not being wonderful, it's once again, it's one that needs to be used. Now, if this one gets that original projectile back and gets a damage tweak, I could see this being well worth a 4DU expenditure. That, and it's got cool value, which cool value is, obviously cool value is cool. Now moving on to the Mage. The Mage, of course, is going to be best used in combination with other minions that could be potentially taking damage, and the Mage will heal them. The Mage does really, really good. Additionally, the Mage has a rune, that Healmaster rune. The Dark Elf Mage minion can also heal nearby defenses and increases healing. That's pretty good and is very useful situationally. So besides just healing minions, it's got a very effective defense heal that's very situational in its usage, but can be really powerful. There's an Arcane Barrier rune for the Apprentice that gives big explosive damage. And I actually used Arcane Barriers with mages healing the Arcane Barriers to kill the Demon Lord on Lycan King bonus difficulty. And it was super effective. Just walls. And took out the boss itself. Not the lanes, but the actual boss. So a mage combined with like an Arcane Barrier in a wall type build is going to be a really cheap variety compared to like a Archer wall build that's going to give you an incredible amount of power at your walls. So the mage is, the damage is low. The heal is good, though. So as far as a healing unit, it is definitely quite effective. Now moving on to the Ogre. Of course, we got the big Ogre. A couple of big glaring problems with the Ogre. Let me go ahead and switch to another character so these pets aren't going off. Glaring problem number 1 would be this is a fused Ogre that doesn't have fusion armor. So it's a blockade type defense that is not getting the damage reduction for being fused. Now, it's a big boy. Another issue there is it's got next to no aggro. So it's not like placing down a spike blockade where enemies will just go to the spike blockade and start hitting it. Enemies will walk past the Ogres. There is a definite aggro issue with Ogres, and then not having that fusion resistance, of course, or fusion armor when it is an actual blockade. You're not going to be using your Ogres for DPS. You see the attack rate on it is ridiculous. Now, in melee range, it actually does really good. We'll drop our Ogre right here again, and then swap out. You know, it smacks them. It's doing 1,000,000 damage per whack. Of course, this is cleave damage. Clearly, the attack rate is bugged. It's not attacking almost twice a second. It says 0.55. That, without a doubt, is not 0.55. So it does, it hits like a truck, but it has no fusion armor and no aggro, meaning that it's just not going to be an effective wall. So it'll be fun for memes. Of course, this is super early in the PTR, so this, no doubt, will get adjusted without question. All in all, I think what is available with the Summoner is a super good start. Now, there's without a doubt a bunch of tweaks that are going to need to be made prior to this hero launching. However, it's fun. It looks good. It's got a great glide animation. It's got the Overlord mode, which I never even talked about. I had a little bit of a hard time getting used to using it. I guess I just haven't played enough DD1 lately, and I did use Overlord mode constantly in DD1. So I think it's going to be more about building the habit with getting that Overlord mode going. Now, the Overlord is your alternate attack. It's your right click. So when you're playing Summoner, like I personally was constantly accidentally going into Overlord mode. And, you know, obviously, if you don't want to be in Overlord mode and you go into Overlord mode, that's not a good thing. But I like what I see so far. You know, a lot of people were saying they hated the glide animation. I think the glide animation's really good. I think it looks awesome. You can cover pretty good range with it, and you can save your double jump with it as well. So, you know, say I just jump once, hold down the space bar. Well, I'm going to get another jump mid-air. So, I don't know. I think the base of what's there with the Summoner definitely looks quite nice. The character itself looks quite nice. Obviously, I got threw on some little goggles and whatnot on this one, but I think the Summoner is going to be good. It just is going to need a few tweaks, that without a doubt. But there's going to be lots more info coming regarding the PTR. I'm going to do a video tomorrow that's completely covering runes and going over some of my personal favorite. And then, of course, as I get more testing in, I'm going to also be covering like a tier list of the runes, and then we'll be going through all of the defenses that were changed in the game. And there's some pretty darn good ones. But that will do it for this episode. Thanks an absolute ton for watching, and I will see you next time around. Take it easy.